When you're 6 years old, it seems parents say some of the strangest things. Like, they might say, "Don't put beans in your ears." Well, I never saw anybody that looked like they put beans in their ears, or any evidence that anyone had put a bean in their nose, or put a bean in their nose and anything was growing. Or they might say, "Don't drink your daddy's coffee. It'll stunt your growth and turn your knees black." I have never seen any kid that I thought wasn't growing well or had black knees. Or they might say, "Now don't tease your big sister or you'll get clobbered." Well, that one I bear. But then my parents would say, "Don't go in the cornfield. You'll get lost and the bears will get you." Well, now, when you're 6 years old and you're growing up on a corn farm in central Illinois, the strange thing about that was they wouldn't say that except in July and August and the first part of September, because central Illinois, where I grew up, Champaign County, Illinois, is flatland. Okay? Flatland. What's the flattest thing you can think of?
Illinois.
It's flatter than that. It's flat. It is so flat where I grew up, you can see your dog run away for 3 days. It's so flat you can see 20 miles in all directions. So on the 4th of July, when you say, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, can we go to the big fireworks in Champaign? Can we go to the stadium?" And he says, "No, no, son, why would we want to go all that way, spend all that money on snacks? We can stay right here on the farm and see 4 fireworks shows. We can see Champaign, we see Rantoul, Muhammad, and Fisher, and they're all around us." Until I was 14 years old and got to go with a friend, I thought fireworks were only this big. And who knew they made noise? Flat. Now, flatland is flat because 20,000 years ago there was an ice age, and it was had a glacier that was a mile thick. And then about 12,000 years ago, the ice age ended and the glacier receded, and it left the whole center part of the United States as great tallgrass prairie and wetlands. Up until 1870, when the railroad came and drained the wetlands and left 9 foot of topsoil, and it was absolutely the most fertile corn farm ground in the world. And so they came and they said, "Well, we got all this flat land, so we'll just divide it all up into 1 mile squares and set up all the farms." So all the farms are exactly 1 mile square grid. If you look at it from a satellite, it's simply graphic. So that's where I grew up. And so what we have when you live in flatland is you have big, big sky. Big, huge sky. Which has many advantages. It stimulates your imagination. You don't get distracted by seeing lots of things on the ground, because all there is on the ground is corn and beans. Lots and lots of big sky, but it creates this need to find somewhere to hide. It's just a little bit much. Well, so for most of the year, of course, you can see all the way to the horizon, but then as the corn starts growing up more and more and more, what used to be a 20-mile horizon slowly gets to be less and less, because by the end of July, 1st of August, the corn's going to be 12 feet high, and in certain places, no longer do you have a big sky at all. It's only about that big. And it's just about that time when your parents start telling you when you're 6 years old, "Don't go in the cornfield, you get lost and the bears will get you." Well, so it was an August day in Flatland, and we were having dinner. Now, for those of you city folks who don't understand, in farm country, in Flatland, we never, ever had lunch. Never had lunch once in my life. We have dinner in the middle of the day. You might have a little supper later on with leftovers. So we have dinner in the middle of the day, And Mama and Daddy were talking about what a fine corn crop we had. They were saying things I had heard before that always made me feel real good. Mother would say, that corn is so good, it's black. What that meant was, it was so healthy, it's so dark green, she would just say, look at that black corn out there. And they were talking about what a great corn crop it was going to be, but it was needing a rain. Because the corn, when it pollinates, has to have rain 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, or it won't make kernels. So I knew this was a happy time, but a worrisome time. It was August, you couldn't do anything more to the corn crop except worry and wait, worry and wait. That's what you did in August, and the farmers were really good at worry. So Mama went to town. Daddy went in to take his every single day 26-minute nap after dinner. And I couldn't go outside. It was too hot. It was hot. It was heat stroke hot in August. I just stayed in the family room, played until the phone rang. Now, we were on a party line. We had one of those Lassie phones on the wall. You know, one of those wooden Lassie phones with the speaker that comes out and the, you know. And we were on a party line. So when you're on a party line, when it rings one ring, you know that's the, you can pick up and hear what the Kessler's like is. When it's 2 rings, you can pick up real softly so they can't hear and find out what the Binders are doing. And if people wanted to hear what we were doing, that was one short and one long ring. But this ring was different. It was ring. Well, I knew what that meant. That meant trouble. Everybody pick up. Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. The phone, the phone. What? Oh, hello? Yeah? Oh. Okay. We'll be right there. He hung up and he said to me, get your shoes and your hat. It's hot outside. There's trouble at Harold Ingalls' place. We got to go help. So we got in the truck and we headed down the road. I said, Daddy, what's wrong? What's the trouble? He said, your friend Johnny Ingle, your good buddy Johnny, has been lost for several hours. And they don't know where he is. And they think he might be in the cornfield. Well, so we drove a little farther, and then I had a horrible thought. I remember that just 2 weeks before, when Johnny, my good buddy, was over and a bunch of other kids, we had decided to play hide and seek. We'd heard about this game. We didn't play it very often. Remember, there's not very many places to hide. But we heard about it, and it could be a lot of fun, and we kind of divided up into teams, and we were looking for places to hide, and Johnny was on my team. I said, Johnny, I know, let's go hide in the cornfield. He said, oh, no, would it be okay? I said, let's go in the cornfield. And so we went, and we hid in the cornfield, and of course, none of the other kids found us there, and we always won the game. We always ran to the base first, and we won the game. It was a great time, and I remember I took Johnny into the cornfield, and so we got to Harold Ingalls' house. Now, Harold Ingalls was a big, strong, German Mennonite man who was gentle and kind and one of the best neighbors you'd ever want. You know, we lived in this community. The biggest church group in my community were the Mennonites. The Mennonites were wonderful people, and they seemed so exotic to me. And Mother always would say, whenever she wanted to give us a little sermon on Christian morality, she would say, you need to be like those Mennonites. Because if you got sick or somebody died, they were the first ones there with the casserole. And goodness, if the storm blew your barn down or you burned your barn down, they were the first ones up the driveway. They were all great carpenters. They built your barn back in 3 days. So I knew my daddy wanted to pay back a favor to his good neighbor, Harold Ingalls. So we drove up in his farmyard. Here were all the other neighbors there. They'd all heard the phone call. They divided up into search parties, and they started going through the corn. Now remember, we got 1 mile grid, so it's 1 mile there and 1 mile back, straight as an arrow each row. You could see just 2 or 3 rows on either side. The search parties looking for little Johnny Ingalls. And remember, it's heat stroke hot. Now the storm clouds were gathering in the background, but we had time before the storm came. Looking. But of course I stayed right by the truck where Daddy told me to wait. I wasn't going to go in the cornfield. And I watched those search parties come out. And everybody looked and saw they hadn't seen. Then they went back in. And then Harold Ingold came out. And I always remember he stood there, this big oak of a man, with his hands on his hips. He looked at that cornfield, shook his head, and then he saw his brand new, great big John Deere tractor sitting there in the front. And he made a choice. Got his arms down, he walked over, he climbed up on that big, tall seat of that John Deere tractor. He started that tractor up, and he drove it right into that fine corn. Just straight down the road. You could hear the stalks falling, plop, 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 and all you could think about was the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that were being gone, and the money needed to make the payment on that John Deere tractor. But Johnny Ingold was lost. And so the search party came out, and they stopped, and they saw what had happened, and everybody stopped, and they listened, and they heard the tractor drive all the way to the end of the first row, and then go down a little bit, and then come back. They heard it come back about halfway, and then it stopped. And waited. Then it started up again and came towards us. We could hear it as it got closer and closer, and then emerged out of the tall corn jungle. And there, without any movement at all, was little Johnny Ingold wrapped around Big Daddy Harold Ingold's neck. And he was 3 colors. He was pale white underneath. And his cheeks were bright, hot, flushed red. And on top was a dusting of yellow corn with 2 tear trails running right down the center of his cheek. Well, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and Harold took Johnny back into the house, and they were there for a little while, and then he came out, and just very simply he said, "You are the best neighbors a man could have. Thank you for your help. Johnny will be okay. We'll see you later." And he went back in the house. And as we all drove home, the thunder broke and the sorely needed rain came, and we knew the crop was going to be made. Now, you know, after that, I thought long and hard about how I almost created a horrible disaster because I hadn't really listened to these funny things that the adults said. So you know what? I just decided I'm having nothing to do with beans at all. Not a thing. Stayed totally clear of beans. And I'm not going to ever drink Daddy's coffee, and I didn't until I was 20 years old in college. And let me tell you something you need to remember. Do not go into Cornfield. You'll get lost.